Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visors YouTube Live. I'm here with Parker Thune, Spencer Forsythe. My name is Brandon Drumm. We are going to you live a few days before Oklahoma takes on West Virginia in Morgantown. Parker and I will be headed out on Friday night. Get there, and then we will be headed down to Morgantown early on Saturday morning to cover that game for you guys on OU Insider. But first, we're going to talk about all things Oklahoma football, Oklahoma recruiting. It's been a wild ride over the last few weeks, and that's going to continue. The closer you get to National Signing Day, Parker, the more wild it's going to get. Oklahoma offering Taylor Wine today, obviously offering David Peavy, who's committed
restart
to
you.
Gosh, don't do it. Don't do it. I honestly think Taylor Wine would be a 4-star easy if he was in the state of Texas.
That kid's good.
Mm-hmm. He's phenomenal. And I talked to him today. I put a crystal ball in, and people want to know why I put a crystal ball in. Well,
why'd you put a crystal ball in, Brandon?
Mainly,
people know.
No, mainly because when we talked prior to the crystal ball, he said pretty much no matter who offers, Oklahoma would jump up to be his top school if he offered. He's taken an unofficial to Oklahoma for the Bedlam game. It could turn into an official visit if his parents and Coach Chavis and Coach Venables decide that's probably the better route. The only negative part about that is Oklahoma has like 15, 16 official visits, 17 official visits left. And when they get done and say Peyton Bowen ends up wanting to take an official visit. Obviously, David Hicks is taking an official visit. Damian Sanford's taking an official visit for Bedlam. I'm trying to think who else is going to be there. Sanders is taking an official visit for Bedlam. You're just running out, and you also have to have those things for kids that have been committed to you that have yet to take official visits, and you've got to have it for transfers. So Oklahoma is ice thin right now as far as official visits go. So it is going to be super interesting. One thing I did find out when talking to people the other day that Oklahoma could do, Parker, is that a kid who's on campus can take an official visit after he signs. So like after the spring game, he can take an official visit to the school that he participated in the spring game with.
Which at that point, it's just like, why?
Well, to get wined and dined and to be treated the way you wanted to be treated prior. You took one for the team, essentially, I guess, to allow them to go grab guys because you were already on board and you weren't going to go anywhere. And I don't know. I don't know if Oklahoma's going to do this. I'm just saying I found out that that's something that can be done. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if it does get done with how thin they are with official visits. So it's going to get interesting. I mean, I think there's just so many things going on right now with recruiting that is just like, it seems like there's so many things, Parker, but there's like not a lot of movement.
Well, there's actually been quite a lot of movement. It's just
right. I'm talking like
all the exact
wise.
Same guys we've been talking about for months.
Right. But I mean, like, okay, nobody was shocked about the Vasek thing. What to do, right? Like, it's a big deal you're losing, but this thing seemed to be heading down that road.
And when he didn't show up for the game last week,
that was
kind of the point at which the writing was on the wall, right? Because he had said along, I'm going to be in town for OU Baylor. Then he wasn't in town for OU Baylor. And then everybody kind of put two and two together and, figured out, okay, this thing is legit and he's probably gone. And lo and behold, as of yesterday, he is no longer committed to Oklahoma. Flip to Texas. It is the third decommitment of the cycle for Oklahoma, following, of course, Ashton Cozart and Caleb Spencer. And that naturally is kind of the onus for the new offers out to Taylor Wine and David Peavy. So Oklahoma back to the drawing board to an extent at the edge position. You got PJ Adebawore committed. That dude's going to be a stud. You've got Derek LeBlanc.
Is he though? Committed. Is he committed? I mean, there's rumors out there on our board.
Oh man, and I don't know where those came from, but Pete, listen. I want people to understand. The day after PJ Adebawore silently committed to Oklahoma, he got an offer from Notre Dame and didn't even bother to post it, didn't even bother to have more than an initial conversation with the Notre Dame staff. Heck, even before he committed, he got the A&M offer. He had the offer from A&M. And we know, like, at that point, this is not the A&M of November that we're talking about. This is the A&M of June. Yeah, this is the A&M of June. This is the A&M that still has a little bit of juice. And I remember talking to PJ Adebawore the day after he got the A&M offer, and he was just like, you know, I know what I want, and Texas A&M doesn't line up with what I want. And that was it for him. Like, it's as simple as that. He's a very low maintenance, very cut and dried type of kid. Everything is black and white in his world. And so the fact that these rumors are suddenly swirling that he's talking to Michigan, Ohio State, Missouri. Yeah, no, get that out of here. Get that out of here. PJ Adebawore is going to be a Sooner. And he's supposed to be back on campus for the Bedlam game, as are many others among the Sooners group of commits.
Yeah, I think that's probably the one of the things that is probably least talked about is, there is official visits with Damian Sanford. There is official visits with David Hicks. Obviously, Peyton Bowen's coming up, whether unofficially or officially, for that game. And then you've got Sanders, the defensive line offer that Oklahoma put out. And you've got Taylor Wine coming in as well on an unofficial or official visit, depending on how all that plays out. So you have all that happening, and then you're going to have Jacoby Johnson, Jackson Arnold, like literally Caden Green, PJ Adebawore, like the whole class, for better or for worse, is going to, I believe Derek LeBlanc is most likely supposed to be there as well. So, and obviously shout out to Ricardo LeBlanc. Appreciate you for watching. As always, we got that out of the way early. I want to know how much how much do you think that plays into maybe swaying a few guys like a David Hicks or a Sanford or I think we both agree Sanders is most likely to commit on the trip as is. Probably Taylor Wine as well. So there's two. But David Hicks and Sanford and Bowen, you get all those guys, all those commits. And if Oklahoma can beat West Virginia going into that week, that sets it up for a weekend that could be epic on the recruiting trail for Oklahoma. And that's kind of what Venables has been trying to set up. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if there's a few transfer guys that show up as well. I mean, this thing could be as big as they want it to be that weekend with unofficial and official visits. And the list is already epic. I talked to David Stone tonight heading out to my kids' game, and we were just talking, and he said, look, if I plan on being at Bedlam, but I'm playing the night before, I'm playing St. Francis Academy in Baltimore. So it all depends on how the game is going to be played as far as the time for OU OSU. If it's a 6 p.m. kick, he'll most likely be there. If it's 11 a.m., it's going to be almost impossible for him to make it. He's coming back in not only for Thanksgiving, he gets a whole week off, but it's his birthday on the 20th, he says. So he's been wanting to go back. He's been wanting to visit for Bedlam. This has been a big deal to him. And this is in the TV network's hands at this juncture. It's in Oklahoma's hands if they win. It's in Oklahoma State's hands if they win, because it's going to look better 6-4 for 7-3 than 5-5 and 6-4 versus 6-4. So you got to win. You got to win. And unfortunately, West Virginia is getting a bunch of guys back this week. And I think that's probably one of the more sucky things. I think they're getting a couple of defensive linemen, a couple of cornerbacks, a wide receiver back. They went from missing all those guys and being torched through the air to all their guys are back. So, but the good news is you're playing Morgantown at 11 a.m. and not at night.
Yeah, this is the first time Oklahoma's played in Morgantown in a non-night game environment, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Because
I believe
2012, 14, 16, 18 were all night games to my recollection. And then, of course, they didn't go up in 2020. So, it's funny. The only two guys on this Oklahoma roster that have ever actually played in Morgantown are Deshaun White and Justin Broyles. And I guess Casey Kelleher as well. Mm-hmm. But actually, I don't even know. I might be wrong. I don't know if Broyles actually played, but I know.
No, Broyles has played because he came in 2017.
Well, yeah, I know, but I can't recall if he actually played in that game. If it's
2018, he obviously, he played. He played as reserve, whether special teams or whatever, but he was there. We got two questions here real quick. Well, one's a statement, just appreciate you guys. And then the other one I missed way up here. Missed a few live shows. This is from Mongo5817. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Missed a few live shows. Watched last week's video after. I'm pretty sure you didn't shout out Ricardo. We did shout out. It was just late. I think it was like almost at the very end.
Yeah.
But yes, we did give a shout out today. And obviously we want to thank Tar Heel Sooner as well for the $20. Appreciate you guys for the super chat. We have to ask this question. We're going to ask it. Oklahoma lost to Baylor. That might have been one of the more frustrating games to watch, covering a game. 49-0 was frustrating for various reasons. This one, Parker, more so just because it seemed like Oklahoma would stop them, and then bam, big play. And we talked about this. 9 plays. They ran the ball, 48 times, right, Baylor? 9 plays, 192 yards. The other 39 rushes, 2.04 yards a carry. And I guess the big question is how and why? Like, how can you be so consistent at stopping them and then just be the biggest blunder of just giving up big run plays like that? Because they weren't giving them up in the air. Like the pass defense was really good.
I think I don't know if that's an entirely significant discrepancy, though, because I think if you isolated a team's 9 or 10 biggest runs in any game, the yards per carry of all the other runs would not be tremendously high. But look, at the end of the day,
Oklahoma had far more big plays, 10 plus yards plays than they did. Like, I think it was like almost double. So that's where I'm getting at. Like, how can you be single digits in the 10 plus yard plays and it equal that much, but it be so costly at the same time?
Yeah,
like they were just costly. They were inopportune times.
Yeah, well, and it comes down to, and it's something we talked about in the post-game podcast, which, by the way, Justin Broyles did not play at West Virginia in 2018. He was hurt that day. So, yes, okay. Deshaun White, Casey Kelleher, only 2 guys that have played in Morgantown. But we talked about in the post-game podcast the reality that in 2022, Oklahoma just doesn't have that handful of elite football players to go make you a crucial play in crunch time to go win a game. And you had those guys in 2021. That's why so many of those close football games through the early and middle portion of the 2021 season, that's why so many of those games fell in Oklahoma's direction. It's why they were able to eke out so many wins, such as the West Virginia game in Norman last year, or the Kansas game, or the Texas game, even the Tulane game at the beginning of the year. Those games thus far this year haven't gone Oklahoma's way when you look at Baylor and Kansas State, and it's because this team falters in crunch time.
You
don't have that group of players that's going to step up and have the desire, have the want to have the competitive fire to go and make a play when the situation calls for it. Mm-hmm. You've seen that most ostensibly in the Kansas State game on that 3rd and 16, where Adrian Martinez scrambled for 51 yards. And then you saw it most conspicuously in that Baylor game when Squirrel Williams dashed for 48 on 3rd and 3 and took a knee inside the 10 to ice the game for the Bears. So that obviously was not the only crucial 3rd down that Baylor converted in the 4th quarter. Baylor went for it on 4th and 1 from their own 29-yard line in the 4th quarter of a game that they led by 3 points.
Yep.
That was,
because they knew Oklahoma wasn't going to stop them.
That was a slap in the face. That is a slap in the face.
Yep.
To the University of Oklahoma.
Yep.
And it's slap in the face to Brent Venables, slap in the face to everybody that lined up on the defensive side of the ball for Oklahoma. That was Dave Aranda and that Baylor team telling you, we have no faith that you're about to come up with this stop. And lo and behold, they didn't. And it's just so I rewatched this game, going back and cutting all the all 22 footage, which is available at ouinsider.com to VIPs. But going back and watching everything from a bird's eye view, I was blown away, Brand. I was astonished because I knew watching that game in real time that Oklahoma was just getting dominated at the point of attack and getting blown off the ball by Baylor, especially in the trenches in general, but especially on the defensive side, going up against those offensive linemen of the Baylor Bears. I was just astonished rewatching that game at how thoroughly Oklahoma got dominated at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I mean, it was non-competitive in general. And there were some moments, right? Oklahoma had, I think, 7 or 8 tackles for loss. So there were moments where they were able to catch the Bears napping or they were able to blow up a play. But 80 to 85% of the snaps in that football game where Baylor ran the ball, the Oklahoma defensive line just got their lunch eaten.
Yeah.
That can't happen if you want to win football games in the Big 12, especially not this year in 2022, where everybody is so competitive. The worst team in the Big 12 this year might be the team that you're playing this weekend. And they're no joke.
No,
that's not a laughing stock.
It's a deep league. It's a deep league. And Bobby McKay, appreciate the 1999 in the super chat. It says, talk about the narrative. It's kind of what you were just talking about. Talk about the narrative that Baylor and other teams are getting to the line of scrimmage late because BV wants to see formations before calling his defense. This is causing defenses to not be set at the snap. All defenses do that, by the way. Like, that's nothing new because it's the personnel. It's formations, personnel. That's how they call because it's tendencies in those formations on the hash. So right hash on the 20-yard line, the right hash, 2nd and 10, 40% of the time, they're going to be in this formation and they're going to be in this personnel and they're going to make this call. And that is what, that is just what they make calls off of. And that's all defensive coordinators. And that's their sheet, and they'll sit there and they'll check off, okay, I called that. Was it successful or was it not successful? And that's how they do it. And it's same thing with offensive coordinator. They're going to go and they're going to see what type of defensive call they went up against that formation, and they're going to write it down and they're going to say check plus successful, minus, or check unsuccessful. So that's how they do it. And that's where they start adjusting and making calls throughout the game. So that's hard to be real negative about because it feels like they get the calls in time. It's more or less on the player to get lined up. Like, Venables can get the call in and it may look like he's not, or he may be adjusting, but they're adjusting on sight, on emotion, on their keys out there on the field. So if they see a key that's going to adjust, they're going to do things. And they're going to change up the calls with the hand signals and all that type of stuff. That's just communication defensive. What Oklahoma hasn't seen that in a long time. You definitely didn't see that with Alex Grinch because they call the play and that's what they ran. And it was, don't think, just play. And that is the problem Oklahoma's running into right now, because these kids have never, ever, I've talked to so many people. A lot of these kids have never seen a game plan more than 10 or 15 pages. You're talking 40, sometimes 50-page game plans. Literally right now, these kids are learning football in a way that they've never learned football in their life. It is crazy. Like, and we talked about it earlier when the first time that we had the first inkling that there was maybe an IQ problem on the defense. So, and we talked about it, like, they're getting lost. You're getting lost. Like, and I'm not singling, I'm going to talk about two players, Danny Stun and David Agwebu. And I think Stutzman is going to be a good player. Like, he is playing linebacker in a system that is very, very hard on linebackers now. It's not just run to the ball like he did in Grinch's defense, but he also got hurt last year, so he didn't get a lot of PT, didn't get a lot of run there for a little bit because he was out at least the first half of the year because of his elbow. So there were a few plays that he would go and fill the same gap as whether it was Kanik or Agwebu, and vice versa. Agwebu would go and fill the same gap as Stutzman on their keys. And when you talk to people about it, they're like, they're reading their keys wrong. They're literally getting the motions confusing their eyes, and they're reading their keys wrong. And that's a lot of the busted plays right there. You can go back at Parker. I bet you saw it on a couple of plays where they literally would fill the same gap. And the ball would go to the gap, that one of those two just left.
Yep.
Wide open. It is Bill Belichick. Literally, Bill Belichick and our 9-year-olds are told this exact same thing. And Alabama does it. Do your job. Not what you want to do. Do your job. Just because you think you're going to make a play, you don't have to be a hero. Sometimes being the hero is just doing your job and not making the play because you fill the gap and caused commotion on the line of scrimmage and making the ball carrier think a little bit before they react. That hesitation allows a defensive lineman to scrape and use their hands or a swim move to get in or get skinny through the gap and make a play. If you have 11 guys doing their job, you're going to make a play. Somebody's going to make a play. It may not be you, but your success is hindered on the success of the defense. And when you're not doing your job, guess what happens, Parker? Big plays happen and the defense is unsuccessful. He didn't make the call. BB doesn't make a call for the linebackers to make a play every time. They're called run blitzes for a reason. You're filling the gap.
Yeah. Well, and this is something that we talked about all offseason too, Brandon, that's pertinent to this conversation on a more broad horizon. But we talked about the reality that Brent Venables was going to be a lot more eager to play guys who simply did their jobs than guys with an exceedingly high physical ceiling. Everybody's asking where Justin Harrington has been. Well, the last time Justin Harrington saw the field in any substantial capacity defensively, you know what he didn't do? His job. It was October 1st against TCU. And there was coverage bust after coverage bust. And Justin Harrington was culpable in several of those cases.
He had a crick in his neck. I'm turning and
That's pretty accurate. So again, it's about having 11 guys on the football field that are doing their jobs. And in a lot of cases, Brandon, the Sooners have had 10 of 11 guys doing their jobs defensively. And that's not good enough, right? Brent Venables' mantra going back to spring ball, it ain't good enough. And it's not. It might seem like it. It might seem like you can get away with having 10 of 11 defenders doing their jobs on any specific play. But especially against a team like Baylor, it's not. It's not good enough, and it's not going to win you football games. It's not a recipe for the improved defense, the elite defense that Sooner fans expect to see from their program at a certain point in time. So it's about finding 11 football players, all of whom can execute their responsibility at a very high level and work in conjunction with one another, trust one another as well, not feel like they need to be the ones to go play hero ball in a gap that they're not supposed to be in, as you mentioned, Brandon, and being able to play within the confines of the scheme with confidence and with effectiveness. And so that is what's missing right now for Oklahoma defensively. In general, I think there are a lot of things missing, right? I think there's a lot that this program can improve on defensively. And there are a lot of issues that are endemic across the unit that don't necessarily fall on the shoulders of one specific individual or even one specific position group, but that especially when juxtaposed with some of the other issues at play, create a very unhealthy environment for the flourishing of a defense as a whole. And that right now is what Oklahoma, it's what's holding the Sooners back more so than anything else, is an inability to play effective defense on an individual level at all 11 positions on the football field.
Yeah. And look, we're not singling out anybody, because we could talk about the defensive ends. We could talk about the safeties outside of Billy Bowman and things that they've done. We could talk about the corners. I mean, it's been one person or another on a lot of plays this year. When 10 guys are doing what they're supposed to do and one guy's not, like you said, Parker, it's literally 10 of 11 doing their job and that one person causing a big play or a problem. And I think Stutzman's going to be really good. I do. I think he's going to be really good. He's learning the linebacker position on the fly. He was a safety in high school, a safety. He was built like a linebacker, but they played him back there at safety because he was bigger, faster, stronger than everybody. And they just let him roam and fill lanes. That's all they did, where he didn't have to get blocked, and he was just free to roam. So he's learning right now, learning so many things under Brent Venables. And so he's going to be a really good player. All right. Before we go on and finish out with the recruiting part of it all, final score this week.
This is the first I've given this any thought. Oh,
Me
gosh.
Too. Me too.
Yeah. Okay. If you're putting me on the spot, I'm going to say 38-31 Oklahoma. That's what I'm rolling with. I think they win by a touchdown on the road. They do just enough.
Okay. I'm going to go. So Oklahoma's, they've scored, I think, above 40 in almost all of them, if not all of the games in Morgantown. And I think they've scored 50 on several occasions. I think 3 out of the 4 games. I think. I can't remember the exact stat. So I'm going to go 40, 41, 31 Oklahoma. I think they give up a lot of points. I think they give up a lot of yards. But I think Gabriel redeems himself this week. I think Braden Willis has a big game. I think Marvin Mims has a big game. And I think Jalil Farouk goes off. He keeps building. He's about to just take off. It's like every game he gets more and more exciting to watch.
This is also as much of a homecoming as Jalil Farouk is going to get in his collegiate career.
Yeah, he's going to have a lot of people there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's not a bad take.
Yeah, I talked to somebody today.
Game for Jalil Farouk. I can see it. Yep. I can see it.
I talked to somebody today that knows him fairly well. I'm sure you know who that is.
Yes.
And yeah, they said that there's probably going to be a pretty good contingent of Farouk people there. So, all right, recruiting. This is just going to be one of those wild last months before early national signing period. It is going to get crazy for Oklahoma. I think first and foremost, we've talked about Vasek. What we haven't talked about is Anthony Evans. And I talked to somebody again tonight that said not only did LD Washington talk to Evans and his family yesterday, but Lebby and Venables and all of them talked to Lebby and the family yesterday. And apparently, for those that don't know, the 2023 four-star wide receiver commit out of Converse Judson took a visit to Georgia unofficially last week. But there was also a backstory to the whole thing. His grandma did have surgery. She's doing okay. And they went, his mom grew up in Georgia, had never been to a Georgia game. So they said, oh, well, since we're there, we're literally 45 minutes away from Athens. They took her car. Dad stayed back. Him and his mom went up to the game and they enjoyed the game, came back. I guess they talked to Oklahoma on multiple occasions over the last few days and everything seems to be okay for now. I guess I would say like he's saying all the right things to Oklahoma, doing all the right things. He's potentially visiting for Bedlam. He's one of those guys that's expected to be there. I think, and one thing people need to understand is they're in the midst of the playoffs, like all the Texas kids. And a lot of times they'll have games they'll have games on Saturday nights or Saturday afternoons. And that can really screw up all the Bedlam visits. So, I mean, obviously Hicks isn't in the playoffs, but neither Sanford, but a Peyton Bowen and a Jackson Arnold is. And obviously right now, early, even with Converse Judson being 4-6, they made the first round playoffs. I think they're playing like Jackson, something. I can't remember who the exact opponent is, but they're playing, I believe Thursday or Friday tomorrow or Friday this week. I think it's Thursday. They're playing Thursday night and they'll know when they're going to play shortly after. And all those things are going to determine who's going to be able to make it for the Bedlam game. And that goes for Oklahoma Preps kids because there's a lot of kids that 24, 25, 23, like Jacoby Johnson, Eric McCarty, like when is their games taking place in the playoffs? So those are the kind of things you run into right now in November. We'll see. But as far as Evans goes, things are okay right now on Oklahoma. And I talked to multiple people that I was like, hey man, things seem to be good. Everybody's saying the right things. They say, well, we'll see where it goes from here. But the gut feeling of everybody in Norman is that he sticks. So, and it kind of makes sense, right? Like Georgia doesn't have a quarterback in their 23 class. And Oklahoma has arguably the best quarterback in the country in their class. And they're friends because they've been around each other so much and talked, and they're all in the group chats and stuff like that. So at what point do you think that plays more in than just going to Georgia, the fact that you're going to have that elite guy, Parker?
I think it certainly matters. And I think we've seen this time and time again over the years with wide receivers is a lot of them will show preference toward whatever school has a top of the line quarterback committed or already on campus. You think about the 2021 cycle, right? And Caleb Williams and the influence that he had with some of the key pass catchers in that class. Mario Williams came to Oklahoma in no small part because Caleb was actively recruiting him behind the scenes. It was the exact same with Jalil Farouk. And so I think that certainly carries a lot of weight for somebody like Anthony Evans. And you think back to when he committed to Oklahoma in the first place, that as well was due in no small part to the fact that Jackson Arnold was working devotedly behind the scenes to make sure that Evans locked in with Oklahoma as opposed to Georgia. And the whole commit group for the Sooners put in a ton of work in the Anthony Evans recruitment to help swing him to Oklahoma. But yeah, relationships matter. Peer-to-peer relationships matter. And so that's certainly an advantage that works to Oklahoma's benefit in the Anthony Evans recruitment. It's also a benefit that worked to their advantage in the Jaquays Pettaway recruitment too. Absent Jackson Arnold, is it a foregone conclusion that both Anthony Evans and Jaquays Pettaway are Sooners right now? I don't think so.
No. And when I talked to Evans on the phone prior to the visit, he was like, look, I have my roommates set up. I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to get there on January 14th and all that type of stuff. And like I said, I'm just relaying what I'm told. So I don't know, man. Like these kids, recruiting's wild. I'm not going to sit there and say like it's never going to change. And the kid is just 100% going to stick with Oklahoma. But what we're being told right now is he's telling everybody it's okay. His action could speak completely different tomorrow. It could be completely different 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, or even on National Signing Day, he could just up and decide to sign with Georgia. Like, I don't know, but we can only tell you what we're told or what is being said to us. So, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know about you, but like offensively, you just feel a little bit more comfortable just because that's what Oklahoma has been used to, is sticking offensive kids sticking. You know what I mean? Like it's just, and when you have Jackson Arnold as your quarterback, it just seems like you said, the peer-to-peer recruiting, the fact that you've got the Elite 11 guy, arguably the best quarterback in the country as your guy, it just seems like it would be hard to turn away from that. Knowing that when you look at the stats that the Oklahoma wide receivers are putting up in their tight ends this year in a quote, quote, down year offensively, when they're going to be hot and they're going to be good, what do you think the stats would be then? Right? Like Hendon Hooker type stats, like just ridiculous. Hyde, just 2 or 3 touchdowns every game type stuff. I mean, that's the potential this offense has if they get clicking and they get the right guys. So, who do you think the next commit will be?
I mean, there's no easy answer. My guess would be Taylor Wine. I would say. Is there anybody who's on a timetable to commit prior to
Sanders? Not before.
It would invariably almost have to be somebody that's going to be in town for Bedlam, right? So it could just as easily be Sanders as it could be Taylor. Hey, it could be DJ Hicks and Davion Sanford. I don't know, but I would be looking at everybody that's in town or going to be in town on that weekend. And start there for the short list of the names that could be in contention for the next commit at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's got to be either Wine or Sanders. I mean, the only other guy that I could see kind of surprising people out of the blue would be a Peyton Bowen. But even then, I think that's a long shot as far as like not doing it prior to his visit. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't see, especially on the heels of the Notre Dame stuff. So, and I'm not sitting there saying like he's going to go to Notre Dame. That's 100% happening. I said the same thing for like, I think we've said the same thing for like 3 months. Believe it when we see it with that kid, because that's where you're at. I mean, how many times can a kid visit Oklahoma and not do anything? I think another guy, we're not talking about is Kendall Dolby.
That's very true. That's very true. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's a JUCO kid. And, you're thinking about commits. JUCO kids probably aren't the first ones to spring to mind, but I agree with you, man. I think Oklahoma's very much in the driver's seat right now to land the commitment from Kendall Dolby. And the visit will go a long way towards dictating that, obviously, because he's not originally from Oklahoma. He's an Ohio kid, and he's got plenty of offers elsewhere. But you look at that offer sheet, Oklahoma's the most impressive one. He's certainly become quite well acquainted with Brandon Hall as well as Brent Venables. Has had multiple conversations with the both of them, and has said he feels like a priority. He feels wanted by that Oklahoma staff. And so, Dolby's another guy that is supposed to be in town purportedly for Bedlam on November 19th if everything holds. So, add him to the pile, I guess.
Yeah. I think another guy that people have asked like who could be the next decommit. I think Anthony Evans, as much as we think, you were being told everything's good because he's saying all the right things. I think Anthony Evans is your top choice, right? To be the next decommit if there was going to be anybody. Right?
Yeah. Like I can't think of anybody else. It's like legitimately Lewis Carter. Yeah, I don't think Lewis Carter is going to pack up and tell Brent Venables thanks, but no thanks.
I was told that Auburn thing may not even be legit. I don't know that for a fact. Like,
anytime you see expected to be on campus, you got to take that with a grain of salt, right? Because Peyton Bowen is expected to be on campus in Austin this weekend.
No, he's not.
And DJ Hicks was expected to be on campus in Austin this weekend, but
he's going to be.
Apparently, he's also expected to be on campus in Eugene.
He is going to Eugene. I got that from his dad. So, but he's going up with Sanford apparently. But the Peyton Bowen deal. The funny thing is I'm the one that told Mike Roach and all those guys that Peyton was, because Peyton texted me and told me, like, he's like, where is this coming from? He said, I told Texas I was maybe going to visit, or I'd ask my parents. And next thing you know, everybody says that I'm going to be on campus. He goes, I'm going to a birthday party with Jackson. I was like, oh, okay. So I sent that out. I said, here y'all guys go. Y'all do what y'all need to do with it. And I just let, Roach and all them handle it because that's their territory. So, but yeah, the Jacob Lacey deal, I think, is interesting. The Notre Dame grad transfer defensive lineman. He came down. Apparently, they loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Good vibes there.
Good vibes there. I think Oklahoma will probably be. If I was to bet right now, I think that's probably where he ends up, is Oklahoma, and that's a good pickup. I mean, you got added depth. You got a guy with some experience, and he's fairly athletic. So, what can Todd Bates do with him once he gets on campus? Because he'll get a few years with him since he's a grad transfer. So, I mean, there's a few. There's going to be a lot of transfers that are going to start happening here in the next week or two. You're going to start seeing a lot pop up here as the season, especially around Thanksgiving. You're going to see a lot of transfers start to say, oh, I'm going to enter this. I'm going to enter this. Nothing can be like, unless you're a grad transfer, you can't enter the portal until, what is it, December 5th, like officially?
December 5th, yeah.
Yeah. You can say I'm entering on December 5th, but you can't officially enter until December 5th, which means unless they're grad transfer, they can't be taking these visits. So it's a weird timeline with all of this. So the last 2 weeks of November, you're going to start seeing guys just, I mean, it's going to just be going left and right, man. Just a ton of transfers being put out there. Gun to your head right now. Yeah, we're getting violent here. gun to your head right now. What where do you think this class ends up? And who closes it out? Oh yeah, I'm calling you out.
I think that you conclude this class by getting Ashton Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get Cecilia Kana.
Mm-hmm.
I think Oklahoma ends up with Peyton Bowen. By the way, very important signee for OU soccer today, Peyton Bowen's girlfriend.
Yeah, Emma.
So there you go. That's another, again, we talked about how OU has that working in their favor. Good news is, as of today, she's not flipping to Texas A&M or to UT. So if you're a Sooner fan, that's another reason to feel enthusiastic about where things sit with Peyton Bowen. So I think you get Ashton Sanders. I think you get Akana. I think you get Peyton Bowen. I'm going to say that on top of that, you get Taylor Wine and pick a safety. Kendall Dolby. I'll say Dolby's the safety. And that's 25 commits right there.
Yeah.
If you can add to that DJ Hicks and Damian Sanford, that puts you at 27, and that squarely puts you in the top 5.
Probably number 2.
What's that?
Maybe even number 2.
It could have them in contention.
Because it'd be 303 something. Dang, my light's going out. 3 something. It'd be over 300. I think you'd be like 304, 305 at that point. Something like that.
So look, I'm not going to sit here and hold my breath for Hicks and Sanford, because I think that's getting your hopes up a little bit more than you reasonably should. But I'll say bare minimum, you have those 25 commits. And that to me is good enough to put you in the top 6. I will say it is a top 6 class for Oklahoma, pending the outcome of the Hicks and Sanford soap opera.
Yeah. I'm going to say this, and this all has a caveat that Oklahoma wins the next 2 of 3 games. If they go 7-5, I think you have a good chance of not only holding on to everybody in the class, you have a chance to bumping up, because that shows progress. I think when these recruits, when these transfers, and when everybody looks at this class and the players right now that are on the field playing, I think you've got to the class and the transfers have to be like licking their chops, going, "Oh my gosh, I can come in and play right away." So I'm with you on a majority of those guys. I think Kendall Dolby will be a safety. I think I'm going to say Peyton Bowen, just because at some point it's got to work in Oklahoma's favor. I still am one of those, I'll believe it when I see it. But since we're predicting, I'm going to predict. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Oh, well, sorry, guys. I'm going to tell you, don't get your hopes up. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you, the kid keeps taking visits. And at some point, Oklahoma, I guarantee you, when it comes to the Hicks and it comes to the Bowen, we already heard, Oklahoma's playing the NIL game. I'm going to put you all like that. Parker can talk. Parker and I can talk to you about it as vaguely as possible. They're playing the game. They're playing the game.
Yeah, I don't think that's a secret at this point. I don't think that's anything people should be surprised by.
A&M just killed Oklahoma on the NIL stuff, and that is so far from the truth. Oklahoma had a pretty good deal laid out there, and if you talk to some people around Hicks now, some people feel like Oklahoma may have had a better package or whatever, but A&M had Damian Sanford, and they're visiting to Oregon together. They're taking visits together for a reason. They're supposedly inseparable, best buds, do everything together after school, all kinds of stuff, real close, real tight knit guys. Now I think A&M had a ridiculous package for David Hicks. I think you can also throw Sanford in there And when you get a ridiculous NIL package and your best friend's going there, chances are that's probably where you're going to end up. I think we underestimated all that, even with him being committed at the time. I think we all underestimated the Sanford part. We also underestimated A&M being desperate and with 11 commits and throwing a buttload of money out.
All right, we got 2 questions here, Brandon, in the super chat, and this may take us to the finish line here. We'll see. But Daniel wants to know, please talk about remaining official visits. We have 56 and 6 carried over, 36 on the books with 6 at Bedlam. How do we allot the remaining 20?
I don't think there's 20 left.
I don't think there's 20 left either. And I don't know where people are.
I think there's like 17 at most.
Yeah.
From what I'm doing.
Things are getting tight, and we talked about that at the beginning of the show. Oklahoma's probably going to have to be a little bit stingy with how they allot the remaining official visits.
And that's where,
who gets those official visits?
No, look, we talked about it, and there's a loophole, and you can have those guys come on, and even though they've been on campus for a couple of months, you can still use an official visit for the spring, because the spring official visits are different than the summer. Somehow, I don't know how that works, and I don't know if I'm wording this right, but so they can use those official visits on a player that's been playing or practicing on campus. So they could go up to like a commit that's like, I can't remember, maybe like, let's say Heath Ozida, McCarty, and a couple other guys that haven't really officially taken their officials yet to Oklahoma. And they can say, hey, can you take one during the spring? I know you're going to be here already and you're going to be practicing, but we'll wine and dine you, treat you like you're a recruit. Your whole family can come down. We will do the whole bit for you guys. But we have to have these numbers for said class going in to finish out the transfers and stuff like that. Because if Oklahoma was to official visit Sanford, Hicks, Sanders, potentially Peyton Bowen, so there's 4, so now you're down to 13. Then you got Ozida, you're down to 12. You've got McCarty, you're down to 11, and now you've gotten, oh my gosh, Taylor Wine, 10, potentially, maybe even a David Peavy if he decided he wanted to take one, or a Jordan Allen. So now you're down to 7, and you have transfers you have to try to pick up too, because attrition may be quite wild this year. Ooh, OU would be screwed. So they're going to have to figure out a loophole how to do that. They just are. It's going to be tight. Wait, like a tiger. Little Goldman reference. All right. Is there another one?
We do have another question, and this comes from Bobby in the super chat, and it's about David Peavy. Was Peavy being recruited before his commitment to USC, and what's the backstory on him?
That's you. I mean, I'll let you do the backstory. He told me he's working on setting up a visit, or he had one planned in mind, but you have more intel on that, so you go ahead.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because I've talked to people out in Cali. I've talked to people in Oklahoma today, and Peavy, obviously, what Peavy will say is probably the company line, right? Yeah, like I'll work on an OU visit, that kind of thing. But you talk to people in Cali, it's like, kid's probably not going to visit. You talk to people in Oklahoma, the word is the kid's going to visit. And so it's a classic case of, they say, I say. Not really sure what ends up happening at this point in time. And he is committed to USC, obviously. But there appears to be, from what I can glean, there appears to be some legit interest there. And that's not to say he flips eventually.
Right.
But I think that offer piques his curiosity, is what it would seem to me. And there's going to be some discourse between him and Oklahoma going forward. And it's also worth noting that, man, Miguel Chavis put in some work late in the cycle a year ago, and he may be poised to do the exact same thing here towards the end of the 2023 cycle. And when you look at a guy like Peavy in the state of California, you kind of start to sense some parallels to the Grayson Halton situation a year ago, right? Committed to a Pac-12 school. Not really any conspicuous reason for a guy like that to give Oklahoma the time of day. But when you consider a guy that's so relationship driven and so charismatic the way that Miguel Chavis is, and consider the fact that Oklahoma is still very much a national brand, man, a blue blood program in college football. I think David Peavy ends up thinking twice. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say he flips. I'm not going to sit here and even say he visits. But this will be an interesting situation that is worth monitoring over the next couple of weeks, because if he shows up at Bedlam, well, now you got something. And wouldn't it be a nice little dunk for the Sooners to steal a commitment away from their former head coach? Like there'd be a lot of folks that would take a victory lap on Twitter if that came to fruition.
Oh, it would be hilarious. Honestly, it would, record be damned, right? Yeah, as long as they stole something away, it would be one of those. It would give them. It would be like kind of a silver lining in the whole deal. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us on this episode of the OU Insider Under the Visors YouTube Live. You want to get the subscribe spiel for the
yeah. So on this YouTube channel, if you are watching right now, which obviously you are, and you are not subscribed to this YouTube channel, which in general is about 70% of you week to week, please hit that subscribe button, because it helps us out and it helps you out. You subscribe, then you're getting daily content from this channel, whether that is player interviews, press conferences with coaches, game previews and recaps, podcasts throughout the week. Obviously, the live stream on Wednesday. There's a ton that we're pumping out day to day and week to week on this channel for you guys, and it's completely free. So are you going to get the type of in-depth recruiting analysis and updates that you're going to get at ouinsider.com if you're a VIP over there? No, not necessarily, but it's a real easy way for you to keep a surface level beat on everything that's happening in the world of OU football and recruiting. And as basketball season gets underway, we're going to start to bring you more and more basketball content as well. Although it might be a long year. Might be a long year for the basketball program at this rate. But that said, if you're not subscribed, please hit that button. Again, help us, help you. It helps everybody out if you just hit that subscribe button. So OU Insider on 24/7 Sports, this YouTube channel is the place to be for all things OU football and recruiting, if YouTube is how you like to consume your daily content.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's loads of stuff for y'all to watch on there every single day. If you're not obviously a member of OU Insider VIP, it's $1 for the first month, $9.95 afterwards. We're doing a 30% off right now. $75 gets you 1 year of OU Insider VIP access. It also gets you all of 24/7 Sports. There's 250 VIP sites. So you've got Alabama, A&M, Texas, USC, Georgia, you name it, Clemson, all those schools that Oklahoma is competing against on the recruiting trail, even the ones that they're competing against in the Big 12 on the field. You can go visit their sites, get their VIP content, see what they're doing as well. See if there's a head-to-head recruit that you want to look at. You get information on it all, and you get access to all the national recruiting analysts that we have: Steve Wiltfong, Greg Biggins, Brandon Huffman, Alan True, Brian Doan, Gabe Brooks, Andrew Ivins, you name it. They're on OU Insider almost on a daily basis as well. So not only do you get Parker and myself, and you get us answering questions for you and dropping recruiting notes and team notes for you every day, you get the national guys as well. So it is loads and loads of information, and the best there is across the board, without a doubt. Plus, you can join close to 5 figures Oklahoma Sooner fans. I mean, literally like thousands and thousands and thousands of Oklahoma fans are on there every day, chatting it up, trolling sometimes, being annoying sometimes, but we love them nonetheless, because it's that time of year when everything's going wrong. Anarchy happens, and it's happening, whether on Twitter or whether on message boards. But the good news about the message boards is you get insider information. People bring what they're hearing. They get to hide behind screen names and get to put information out that normally isn't put out there publicly in that sector. So it's worth it, especially when you get all the information that Parker, myself, and all the national guys bring out and put together each and every day for you guys with OU recruiting and team news daily. Again, $1 for the first month, $9.95 afterwards, 30% off if you want to go the whole year, $75 gets you 1 year. So it'll last you all the way till November, whatever you sign up. Anyways, all right, that's going to do it for this episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. For Spencer Forsythe on the board, for Parker Thune, my name's Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed day.